Lyra Voss knew the rules of deep space salvage. Never board a ship with active power signatures, never trust a seemingly empty vessel, and never, under any circumstances, take on passengers. By sunrise, she would break all three. The derelict merchant vessel hung suspended in the violet haze of the Helios Nebula, its hull scarred by micrometeor impacts and cosmic radiation. Lyra's scanner showed minimal power readings, just enough to maintain basic life support. Perfect for salvage, too perfect. "Begin proximity scan," she commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls of her ship, the Artemis. "Focus on structural integrity and internal atmospherics." The computer chirped acknowledgement as data streams filled her viewport. Everything looked standard: pressure stable, minimal radiation, no obvious signs of biological contamination. But something felt off. The ship's position was too convenient, its systems too well preserved for something supposedly abandoned. Lyra adjusted her pressure suit seals and checked her sidearm. "Artemis, maintain position and continue scanning. Flag any anomalies." The airlock cycled with a soft hiss. Lyra pushed off, her magnetic boots engaging as she landed on the derelict's outer hull. Up close, the damage looked different, more deliberate than random. Someone had tried to make this ship look abandoned. She found the emergency access hatch exactly where it should be, but the override sequence accepted her first attempt. No resistance, no security protocols. Another red flag. The ship's interior was dark, emergency lights casting crimson shadows across empty corridors. Lyra's helmet lights cut through the gloom as she moved forward, each step measured and silent. The air was thin but breathable. She kept her helmet sealed anyway. "Cargo hold first," she muttered, following her scanner's guidance. "Then engineering. Standard salvage procedure. Check the valuable areas first, then decide if the rest is worth the time." The cargo hold doors were sealed but not locked. Inside, shipping containers lay scattered like fallen dominoes. Some had burst open, spilling their contents across the floor. Medical supplies mostly, emergency rations, survival gear. All valuable, all too perfectly arranged. A soft thud echoed from somewhere above. Lyra froze, her hand dropping to her weapon. The sound came again, followed by what might have been footsteps. She killed her lights and pressed against the wall, waiting. The footsteps grew closer, uneven and hesitant. Whoever it was wasn't trying to be stealthy, either amateur or injured, maybe both. A figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the emergency lights. Female, tall, moving with obvious pain. She wasn't wearing a pressure suit. "I know you're there," the woman said, her voice hoarse but steady. "I saw your ship dock." Lyra didn't move. "This is a salvage operation. The ship's been marked as abandoned." "It is now," the woman coughed, a wet, painful sound. "Everyone else is dead." "What happened?" "Does it matter? You're here for salvage. I'm here because I have nowhere else to go." She stepped forward, hands raised. "My name is Raven, Raven Thorn, and I need your help." Lyra's scanner showed no weapons, no obvious tech signatures beyond basic life signs. But something about the woman's stance, the way she held herself, spoke of military training. "Turn around slowly," Lyra ordered, emerging from the shadows. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Raven complied. In the better light, Lyra could see the dried blood on her temple, the tears in her dark clothing. Her eyes were sharp though, alert despite the obvious exhaustion. "You're right," Lyra said. "I'm here for salvage, not rescue missions." "Then salvage me," Raven's lips curved in a bitter smile. "I'm worth more than everything else on this ship combined, to the right people anyway." "That's not exactly encouraging." "No, but it's honest." Raven swayed slightly. "I can pay, information, credits, technology, whatever you want. Just get me out of here before they come back." "Well, they—" As if in answer, a new alert flashed across Lyra's HUD. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace, heavily armed on an intercept course. "Corporate Security Division," Raven said grimly. "They've been hunting me for 3 weeks. This ship was my last hiding place." Lyra's mind raced through options. The Artemis was fast, well-armed for its size, but it couldn't outgun a CSD patrol. They had maybe 10 minutes before the ships came into weapons range. "Why are they after you?" "Because I know things I shouldn't, about experiments, about people who disappeared, about what really happens in the outer colonies." Raven's eyes met hers. "Help me and I'll tell you everything. Leave me and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have stopped what's coming." Another alert. The ships were moving faster now, their energy signatures bright against the nebula's background radiation. Lyra cursed under her breath. This was exactly the kind of situation she'd spent years avoiding. Getting involved meant painting a target on her back, risking everything she'd built. The smart play was to leave right now. But something in Raven's eyes, something in the way she stood there refusing to beg, made Lyra hesitate. "As if you're lying to me." "I'm not, but we don't have time for promises." Raven glanced at the ceiling as if she could see through it to the approaching ships. "Are you in or out?" 7 minutes to weapons range. Lyra made her decision. "Follow me close and fast. If you slow me down, I'm leaving you behind." They ran, through dark corridors and emergency bulkheads, past the evidence of whatever violence had emptied this ship. Raven kept pace despite her injuries, moving with the precision of someone used to combat situations. The Artemis's airlock seemed to take forever to cycle. As soon as they were through, Lyra slammed the override. "Strap in," she ordered, already moving toward the cockpit. "This is going to get rough." The pursuing ships were visible now, their hulls gleaming against the nebula's purple swirls. Standard CSD patrol cruisers, heavily armed but relatively slow. The Artemis might have a chance if. "They're deploying fighters," Raven called from the passenger seat. 3, no, 4 units. "I see them." Lyra's hands flew across the controls, plotting a course through the nebula's denser regions. "Hold on." The Artemis's engines roared to life, pushing them hard into their seats as the ship accelerated. Behind them, the first warning shots lit up the void. Lyra dove into the nebula's gas clouds, using the radiation interference to mask their signature. The fighters followed, but their heavier weapons would be less effective in the charged particles. "You've done this before," Raven observed, gripping her restraints as they banked hard around a particularly dense cloud. "Once or twice." Lyra allowed herself a tight smile. "There's a reason I'm still alive in this business." The next hour was a blur of evasive maneuvers and careful power management. Lyra used every trick she knew, every secret route and blind spot in the sector. Gradually, the pursuit fell behind, their signals growing weaker until finally fading into background noise. When they were finally safe, or as safe as anyone could be in deep space, Lyra engaged the autopilot and turned to her unexpected passenger. "Start talking. I want to know exactly what I just got myself into." Raven was pale, the adrenaline crash hitting her hard, but her voice remained steady. "It's a long story." "We've got time." Lyra leaned back in her chair. "And you're not going anywhere." "No," Raven agreed, touching the dried blood on her temple. "I suppose I'm not." She took a deep breath. "It started 3 months ago on a research station called Horizon Point." As Raven began her story, Lyra watched the nebula's swirling patterns through the viewport and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, or possibly the most important decision she'd ever face. Either way, there was no going back now. The silence of her carefully maintained solitude had been broken, and in its place, something new and dangerous was taking shape. The outpost barely deserved the name. A collection of prefab modules clinging to the surface of a mineral-rich asteroid, held together by structural supports and stubborn determination. To most ship's sensors, it would register as nothing more than mining debris, which was exactly why Lyra had chosen it. "Soren won't turn us in," she said, guiding the Artemis toward a concealed docking port. "But he'll want answers." Raven sat in the co-pilot's chair, her face drawn with pain. The makeshift bandages they'd applied during the flight were already soaked through. "How well do you know him?" "Well enough to trust him with my life, which is what I'm doing by bringing you here." Lyra engaged the docking clamps. "He used to be a military medic before. Well, that's his story to tell." The airlock cycled open to reveal a tall man with close-cropped gray hair and cybernetic eyes that gleamed silver in the dim light. Soren Kane didn't look surprised to see them, but his augmented gaze lingered on Raven's injuries. "Bringing me patience again, Lyra." His voice was gruff but not unkind. "Last time it was a smuggler with plasma burns. What's the story this time?" "Less talking, more treating," Lyra replied, helping Raven through the airlock. "She's lost blood and those wounds need proper attention." Soren's medical bay was small but well-equipped, a reminder that his exile was self-imposed rather than forced. As he worked on Raven's injuries, his cybernetic eyes constantly scanned her vitals, displaying data only he could see. "Corporate security did this," he said finally. "It wasn't a question. I recognize their handiwork, the precision of the cuts, the specific trauma patterns. He looked at Lyra. You're playing with fire. Wouldn't be the first time. No, but it might be the last. He finished sealing a particularly nasty gash on Raven's shoulder. These people don't give up easily. They'll have tracking algorithms scanning every transmission, every supply requisition, every energy signature that might lead them to you. Raven spoke up, her voice stronger now that painkillers were coursing through her system. He's right, they'll find us eventually, they always do. Then we better make sure we're ready when they come. Lyra crossed her arms. What exactly did you steal from them, Raven? And don't tell me it was just information. I saw how they chased us. Raven's hand went to her neck, touching something beneath her collar. Not stole, escaped with. She pulled out a small pendant, unremarkable except for the faint blue glow emanating from its center. This is what they want, or rather, what's inside it. Soren's cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on the pendant. Quantum storage device, military grade, but the energy signature, I've never seen anything quite like it. That's because it's not supposed to exist. Raven's fingers tightened around the pendant. What's stored here could bring down entire corporations, expose decades of illegal experiments. Human trials, genetic manipulation, consciousness transfer, all conducted on unwitting subjects in the outer colonies. Lyra felt her stomach turn, and you were one of them. No, I was one of their researchers, shame-colored Raven's voice, until I discovered what they were really doing with my work. The pendant contains everything, research data, subject records, financial transactions, enough evidence to stop them if we can get it to the right people. A warning klaxon cut through the conversation. Soren moved to a nearby console, his augmented eyes scanning rapidly through incoming data. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, he reported. Energy signatures match corporate security division vessels. How did they find us so quickly? Lyra demanded. Raven stood, swaying slightly. They must have tracked the Artemis's engine signature through the nebula. I warned you they were persistent. We need to move. Lyra headed for the airlock. Soren. Already on it, he was pulling medical supplies from cabinets, stuffing them into a portable kit. I'm coming with you. That's not. You've got corporate security hunting you, and your new friend here needs continued medical attention. He slung the kit over his shoulder. Besides, my cybernetics can help mask your ship's signature, might buy us some time. Another alarm sounded, more urgent this time. The pursuing ships were moving faster, their trajectories precise and purposeful. They knew exactly where to look. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they're in range, Soren said, following them through the airlock. Less if they've deployed advanced scouts. Lyra rushed through the Artemis's pre-flight sequence, her fingers flying over the controls. Where can we go? They'll be watching all the major ports and most of the minor ones too. I might know a place. Raven was already strapping herself into the co-pilot's chair. There's a resistance cell operating out of an abandoned mining facility in the Carix Belt. They've helped others like me before. The Carix Belt is a debris field, Soren objected, securing himself in the rear seat. Navigating it would be suicide without detailed maps. I have the maps. Raven's eyes met Lyra's in the reflection of the viewport. The question is, do you trust me enough to use them? The first warning shot streaked past the asteroid, too close for comfort. Lyra engaged the engines, feeling the familiar surge of power as the Artemis came to life. I guess we're about to find out, she muttered, and punched in the coordinates Raven provided. The Artemis broke free of the asteroid's minimal gravity well, accelerating hard toward the edge of the system. Behind them, the corporate security ships opened fire in earnest, their weapons turning the void into a deadly light show. Soren's cybernetics interfaced with the ship's systems, projecting false sensor readings and scrambling their energy signature. It wouldn't fool their pursuers for long, but it might give them the edge they needed. As they pushed the ship to its limits, Lyra glanced at her unexpected companions. A fugitive researcher with a conscience that had finally caught up to her, and a self-exiled military medic whose cybernetic enhancements hid stories he never talked about. 3 broken people running from a past that refused to let go. But maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to turn their desperate flight into something more, something that mattered. The Artemis disappeared into hyperspace, leaving their pursuers behind for the moment. But as the stars stretched into streaks of light around them, Lyra knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when they reached the Carix Belt, where ancient mining operations had left a maze of debris and derelict stations. Somewhere in that dangerous tangle of metal and rock, a resistance movement was waiting, if they could survive long enough to find it. Raven's pendant glowed softly in the darkness of the cockpit, a reminder of the secrets they carried and the price of exposing them. The silence between the three fugitives was heavy with unspoken questions and uncertain answers. But for now, they were alive and they were together. In deep space, sometimes that was all you could ask for. The Carix Belt was a graveyard of broken dreams and abandoned ambitions. Fragments of mining stations drifted among asteroid chunks, their hulls long since stripped of anything valuable. But as the Artemis threaded its way through the debris field, Lyra noticed something else. Patterns in the chaos, deliberate arrangements hidden within the random scatter of wreckage. There, Raven said, pointing to what looked like just another derelict processing facility. The signal should be. A burst of static filled the comm system, resolving into a heavily distorted voice. Unknown vessel, identify yourself or be destroyed. Raven leaned forward. Frequency 793, authorization code Starkiller. Silence stretched for several seconds. Then, dock at Bay 4, any deviation from the assigned approach vector will be considered hostile. Soren's cybernetic eyes tracked multiple weapon signatures coming online around them. They're not taking chances. Would you? Lyra guided the Artemis carefully along the designated path. After what Raven told us about corporate security's infiltration tactics, I'd be suspicious too. The docking bay was better maintained than the facility's exterior suggested, though signs of age and hasty repairs were still visible. As soon as they landed, armed figures surrounded the ship, their weapons trained on the airlock. Well, Lyra muttered, this is either going to be a warm welcome or a quick death. The man who stepped forward as they exited the ship didn't look like a typical resistance leader. Cyrus Wade was short, wiry, with thick-rimmed glasses that seemed at odds with the advanced tech visible at his temples. But his eyes were sharp, missing nothing as he studied them. Raven Thorn, he said finally, we thought you were dead. Almost was several times, Raven touched her healing wounds, but I got what we needed. Cyrus nodded to his people, who lowered their weapons but didn't stand down completely. And your companions. Lyra Voss, Raven gestured. She saved my life, and Soren Kane, former military medic, they're both trustworthy. We'll see about that, Cyrus turned. Follow me, and please understand that if you try anything, there are 17 different ways we can space you before you reach the next bulkhead. The interior of the facility was a maze of repurposed industrial spaces. What had once been ore processing chambers now housed communication arrays and tactical stations. People moved with purpose, monitoring screens filled with data streams and sensor readings. Welcome to Echo Base, Cyrus said, leading them into what appeared to be a command center. One of 3 remaining resistance cells that haven't been compromised, yet. Soren studied the technology around them, his cybernetic eyes whirring softly. This is military-grade equipment, recent too. We have supporters in interesting places. Cyrus gestured for them to sit. Now, Raven, show me what was worth nearly dying for. Raven removed the pendant, placing it on a scanning pad. The blue glow intensified as Cyrus interfaced with it, his augmented glasses displaying scrolling data. This is, he trailed off, face paling. This is worse than we thought, the experiment's the scale of it. I know, Raven's voice was tight. They weren't just studying human enhancement, they were trying to create something else. Something that could survive in deep space without protection, that could interface directly with ship systems. Human consciousness transferred into synthetic bodies, Cyrus continued, but the process wasn't perfected, the failures were disposed of in remote colonies, Raven finished, written off as industrial accidents or pandemic outbreaks. Lyra felt sick. How many? Thousands, Cyrus removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. And those are just the ones documented here. Who knows how many other facilities? An alarm cut through the air, high and urgent. One of the tactical officers called out, multiple hyperspace signatures detected, corporate security vessels, at least 6 capital ships. How did they find us? Lyra demanded. Cyrus was already moving, issuing orders through his comm unit. Because we have a traitor, he spun to face them. Someone transmitted our location the moment you docked. The facility shuddered as the first impacts hit its outer shields. Raven snatched the pendant back, securing it around her neck. We need to move, now. Too late, Cyrus pointed to a tactical display showing ships emerging from hyperspace at multiple vectors. They've cut off all escape routes. This is a full containment operation. Soren's cybernetic eyes were scanning rapidly. The shield generators won't hold against that kind of firepower, not for long. Then we make our stand here. Cyrus activated facility-wide communications. All personnel execute Protocol Omega, wipe all data, prep evacuation pods, and arm up. This is not a drill. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as people rushed to their assigned tasks. Through the viewport, Lyra could see corporate security fighters beginning their attack runs. If they take this facility, Raven said quietly, everyone here dies. And what's on this pendant stays buried forever. Lyra met her eyes, then looked at Soren. They both nodded. Then we don't let them take it. What's the plan? Cyrus led them to a tactical station, bringing up a schematic of the facility. We have one chance. There's an old mining tunnel network that connects to a secondary facility about 3 kilometers through the asteroid. If we can get there, we might be able to slip past their blockade using the debris field for cover. That's a lot of might and if, Soren observed. Welcome to the Resistance. Cyrus managed a grim smile, where everything is impossible until it isn't. Another impact rocked the station. Warning lights flashed as the first shield generator failed. Through the chaos, Lyra found herself watching Raven, seeing not just the guilt and determination in her eyes, but something else. Recognition. You know who the traitor is, don't you? Raven's hand went to the pendant. I have a suspicion, and if I'm right, she took a deep breath, we're going to need a different plan. The facility shuddered again as corporate security forces began their boarding attempts. Time was running out, and the truth about who had betrayed them was about to emerge, along with the real reason Raven had come to Echo Base. The next few hours would determine not just their survival, but the fate of thousands of others who had been used as unwitting test subjects in humanity's darkest experiments. And somewhere in the chaos, a traitor was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The traitor isn't inside the facility, Raven said as they hurried through emergency corridors. They're out there on one of those ships, someone who's been tracking me since the beginning. Explosions echoed through the station's superstructure. Cyrus led them deeper into the asteroid's core, past resistance fighters setting up defensive positions. Director Vale, Raven continued. She ran the research division. She's the one who authorized the experiments, who signed off on every atrocity, and she has a neural link to this pendant. Lyra grabbed her arm. You're telling us this now. I needed to be sure we reached someone who could help. Raven met her eyes. The pendant isn't just data storage, it's a beacon, one that only works when it's close to a resistance base. You used us as bait, Soren realized. I used myself as bait, you all just, Raven winced, got caught in the gravity well. Another explosion closer this time. Cyrus checked his tactical display. They're breaching the outer defenses. Whatever plan you have, make it fast. Raven pulled out the pendant. Vale wants this because it's paired with a quantum core in her cybernetic implants. As long as she's alive, she can track it anywhere. That's how they kept finding us. So we destroy it, Lyra suggested. No, Raven's eyes gleamed. We use it. The link works both ways. If we can boost the signal enough, we can access her neural network, download proof of her involvement directly from her mind. Soren's cybernetic eyes whirred. That kind of power would fry any normal transmitter. The Artemis, Lyra said suddenly. Its power core, we modified it for deep space salvage, running way above normal specs. Cyrus nodded. It could work, but we'd need to get back to the docking bay through an army of corporate security forces. The station rocked again, emergency lights flickered. Through distant corridors, they could hear weapons fire and screams. I can get us there, Soren said. His cybernetic eyes glowed brighter. My augments can tap into the facility's security systems, create a path. And I can help. Cyrus pulled out a compact data pad. We've got a few surprises installed for situations like this, assuming you're willing to risk it all on one desperate gamble. Lyra looked at Raven, saw the weight of thousands of lives in her eyes. We've come this far. They moved fast, following Soren's guidance through maintenance shafts and emergency routes. Cyrus triggered automated defense systems, keeping corporate security forces busy with holographic decoys and automated turrets. The docking bay was chaos when they reached it. Corporate security troops had breached the outer doors, engaging in firefights with resistance defenders. The Artemis sat in the middle, still intact but surrounded by combat. "Cover me," Soren said, connecting to a nearby terminal. His cybernetics interfaced with the station's systems, overriding safety protocols. Warning klaxons blared as emergency bulkheads began closing randomly, splitting up the attacking forces. Lyra and Raven sprinted for the Artemis while Cyrus provided covering fire. They reached the ship just as a new wave of troops burst through a side entrance. "Now what?" Lyra demanded as they sealed the airlock. Raven was already moving to the engine room. "We wire the pendant directly into the power core. Use the quantum link to punch through Vale's neural defenses. That'll fry half our systems." "Better than being dead." Raven began connecting cables. "Soren, how long can you hold them off?" His voice crackled through the comm. "Maybe 5 minutes, they're adapting to my overrides." The ship's power core hummed to life as Raven made the final connections. The pendant's blue glow intensified, becoming almost blinding. "Ready," she called, initiating quantum link in 3, 2. Everything went white. Data flooded through the neural connection, overwhelming Vale's defenses. Through the quantum link, they could feel her scream as years of carefully hidden memories were ripped into the open. The power surge blew out half the docking bay's systems. When emergency power kicked in, Lyra saw corporate security forces standing frozen, their neural links to Vale temporarily severed. "Download complete," Raven gasped, pulling the smoking pendant free. Everything she knew, everything she did, it's all here now, and broadcasting on every emergency frequency in the sector. Cyrus's voice came through the static. "Corporate security ships are pulling back. Their command structure is falling apart as the data spreads." "Vale," Lyra asked. "Neural shutdown," Soren reported. "The feedback loop knocked out her cybernetics. She's alive, but her mind." He paused. "Let's just say she'll have plenty of time to reflect on her choices in the medical bay of a prison ship." Raven slumped against the wall, exhausted but smiling. "It's over, they can't hide it anymore." But as emergency teams began securing the facility and treating the wounded, Lyra knew it wasn't really over. This was just the beginning of a much larger fight. The truth was out, but truth alone didn't guarantee justice. That would take more work, more sacrifice, more courage from people willing to stand against the darkness. Looking at her companions, Raven with her burned-out pendant, Soren checking his damaged cybernetics, and Cyrus coordinating the Resistance's next moves, Lyra realized she was exactly where she needed to be. The Artemis would need repairs, but after that there were more secrets to uncover, more battles to fight. And this time, she wouldn't be fighting alone. 3 weeks after Vale's neural shutdown, the Artemis drifted through the violet haze of the Helios Nebula, its systems finally repaired. In the cockpit, Lyra watched the slow dance of cosmic dust while Raven worked at the communications array. "Another facility found," Raven reported, her voice tight with controlled anger. "This one in the Meridian sector. The data we pulled from Vale's mind keeps leading to more sites, more victims. And more people willing to help," Soren added from his station. His cybernetic eyes had been upgraded courtesy of Resistance technicians. "The evidence broadcast is still spreading. Corporate security's entire command structure is in chaos." Lyra nodded, thinking of the changes the past weeks had brought. The Artemis was no longer just a salvage vessel. Working with Cyrus's Resistance network, they'd become something else. Part rescue team, part investigators, tracking down the scattered pieces of Vale's horrific research program. "New transmission from Echo Base," Raven announced. "They've identified another research team. Scientists who worked under Vale now trying to continue the experiments independently." "Where?" Lyra asked, already plotting potential courses. "Deep Space Research Station, officially abandoned after the war but showing power signatures." Raven's fingers danced across the console. "And life signs, lots of them." Soren leaned forward, his augmented vision analyzing the data. "Security looks minimal. They weren't expecting to be found." "They still aren't." Lyra began programming the nav computer. "What's our backup situation?" "2 Resistance ships can rendezvous with us near the target." Raven's voice softened. "You know you don't have to." Yes, I do, Lyra turned to face her. What you showed us, what Vale and her people did. Someone has to stop it, all of it. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with shared purpose. When Lyra had found Raven on that derelict ship, she'd been running from commitment, from connection, from anything that might force her to care again. Now she was running toward something instead. They all were. Soren's quiet voice broke the silence. Jump calculations complete, ready when you are. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the familiar hum of the Artemis's engines. This wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better, it had meaning. Set course, she ordered. Let's go save some lives. The Artemis's engines flared to life, pushing them toward another battle, another chance to make things right. As the stars blurred into streaks of light around them, Lyra thought about choices and consequences, about the price of silence and the power of speaking out. She thought about Raven, who had sacrificed everything to expose the truth. About Soren, who had turned his military augments into tools for rescue instead of destruction. About Cyrus and his resistance fighters who refused to look away from humanity's darkest impulses. And she thought about herself, the salvage pilot who had broken all her rules to help a stranger and found a cause worth fighting for in the process. The nebula's violet light faded behind them as they jumped to hyperspace. Ahead lay more battles, more secrets to uncover, more lives to save. But they would face it together, this unlikely crew bound by shared purpose and growing trust. Somewhere in the corporate towers of the core worlds, other directors like Vale were already moving to hide their involvement, to bury their secrets deeper. But they wouldn't succeed. Not anymore. Because now they were being hunted. By a salvage pilot who had found her moral compass. By a scientist who had chosen conscience over ambition. By a medic whose artificial eyes now served a higher purpose. And by a growing network of others who refused to let the powerful prey on the weak. The Artemis streaked through hyperspace, carrying its crew toward another mission, another chance to right ancient wrongs. They weren't heroes, not really. Just people who had decided that silence in the face of atrocity was no longer an option. And in the quiet moments between battles, when the ship's hum was the only sound and the stars stretched endlessly before them, they knew they had found something rare and precious in the void. A family forged in fire, a purpose born of pain, and hope burning bright against the darkness of space. The end.